Thanks for clicking on this video, and I hope it will paint a picture of what this game is like. In fact, this video is going to be a bit like a Bob Ross painting. Colourful, calming, and maybe a bit odd. But the end product, well, it will be just magical. After all,
it's your world. And in your world, you make all the decisions.
Vrising was only released in May 2022, and it is early access. It's going to set you back a mind-altering US $15. And I tell you that this game is worth every dollar, pound, euro, whatever currency you currently use to buy your dodgy internet purchases.
This year, Commodore's family pack is more value than ever.
I only got this game because someone told me it was good. I've not been able to stop playing it since. This game latched onto my neck and it sucked the blood straight from my veins. But it was a bit like a teenage girl getting her neck latched onto by this vampire. Sorry, I meant to convey the message that it was a really good experience. Yeah, it was really good. But hold your paintbrushes, you junior bobs, because here I am, prattling on, and maybe we should just calm down, take a breath,
Now Elmo feels like himself again.
and ask, hell, if I like it that much, why should you even watch the rest of the video? Well, because it isn't all comely wenches and spirited tavern talk. No, it isn't, but I'll come to that in a bit. Let me first tell you why this game is good, then we can jump into the things that need a little bit of improvement. And hey, if you like this type of content, do consider hitting that sub or like button, because it really does help me out.
There we are.
Well, with some games it can be hard to say why a game is good, almost like why is this video appealing. But with Vrising it is pretty easy to articulate. It simply has great game pacing and mechanics, to a point at least. But you won't get to that, let's call it breaking point, for about 30 to 40 hours. That's if you're playing solo, and I'll cover that shortly. The game is very reminiscent of a cross between Diablo and Valheim. The camera view, the UI and combat is pretty Diablo-like, but the game progression reminds me kind of like Valheim, really boss-focused. The graphics are sharp and nice, the map's pretty big, and it does take a long time to really explore it. The animations of the creatures, your workstations, well, they're all pretty top-notch. The building is simple, it adds value, and isn't overly cumbersome. I found myself often whittling away the daylight hours doing something inside my castle, sticking up curtains, putting down specialist flooring to get crafting bonuses for rooms, changing walls, just admiring the decor, and then thinking about building flow, where things should go, dismantling, replacing structures, planting a garden. Well, the list just goes on. At times I was almost ignoring the next boss I was after and just focusing on gathering supplies and resources to build and modify my castle, doing all those little renovations that make you invested in your home space. I also really enjoyed how the world is alive around you with wandering guards.
Each one has its own personality. All kinds of happy little things. There's one.
Bumping into wandering skeletons, then slogging it out with you just watching on. Or a pack of wolves in a pitched battle with some thugs, or even Ents taking on a rock golem. In fact, you would often come across signs of recent battles on your travels, or just see flashing of lights in the distance as spells are cast between enemy groups. That all just works really, really well. In Vrising, your game progression is measured in the level of your gear. The armor and the weapons, the higher the level of these, the higher the bosses you can unlock. So really basically, you start off with simple items, and as you fight a boss, they will typically unlock for you a mix of a new workstation or similar structure, a new vampire power, or a crafting recipe. It tends to work like that. And eventually, as you fight more and higher level bosses and unlock more items and gear, you can expand your castle, craft potions, armor and weapons, and that's right, the higher the gear you have and the higher the gear you make, the higher the bosses you will fight, and so on and so forth. And these higher bosses will lure you into parts of the map which are tougher, where survival becomes harder as the soldiers and guards and roving patrols significantly toughen up, and they're going to really beat you down fast if you're not prepared for it. Now, being a vampire has some big wins, but it also does have some downsides. And in this game you see this reflected in the day and night cycle. As if you are caught out when the sun rises and you cannot find shade, you're going to fry really quick. In fact, this surprised the hell out of me when it first happened. I'm not sure why, because it shouldn't really, should it? But it did. And after a while, you will start to realise that the map, for the most part, allows travel during the day by moving quickly between shady areas, but you can still get caught out if you end up in a large combat with no shade around, as the sun's going to kill you much faster than any enemy. Also, there are pesky farms which hang garlic all over the place, and this gives you some debuffs, but I didn't let that stop me slaughtering every farmer I could find in revenge, and some temples will have holy blessings on them, and these really burn. And to overcome these, you can of course craft potions to help counter the worst of the effects. But being a vampire, you are the dominant species in this world. You can, depending on the powers you unlock and choose, speed, move, teleport behind enemies. You can rip their necks open for instant kills, charm stupid humans and turn them into literal blood bags for you to sample your own leisure. You can shape change, you can cast a wide range of arcane spells and generally wow the peasants with your ferocity and a range of other things. And of course, blood is so very important. You use it to power your castle, and you can press it in this diabolical machine to make better versions of it. And overall, a great dynamic of this game is invested into blood, and one part of that is blood types and blood percentages of purity. The people and creatures you come across all have different blood types and purities, and provide certain bonuses, and the more pure the blood, the better. So as you progress in the game, you're always looking at this, and you can eventually line up some poor NPC to be your next blood bank by charming him, taking him back to your castle, sticking him in a cage, and then routinely harvesting him. The poor, poor bastard.
There.
As I said, the game isn't quite perfect, and I guess it shouldn't be, as it is still early release and there's more things to be added to the game. But I did notice that the castles, your home bases, are just too big. In particular, when you unlock them to tier 3, they are massive. And you have to share the map with other players, so some parts of the map can start to feel a bit crowded, and this can happen pretty quick. In Vrising, certain parts of the map can suffer a bit of a real estate crisis. And a couple of days literally before I released this video, I noticed this in an update. That is a column which shows you whether territory is limited on that map or not. This is obviously recognition of this problem. And the items that you put in your castles are really beautiful, and the animations are excellent, but yet again, a lot of them are really big. They suck up a lot of internal real estate. Now, that isn't a big deal, but I just felt maybe with that stuff was a little bit better, you wouldn't have to have such big castles. Now, PvP is quite fun in Vrising, but I found it quite brutal at the same time, and I guess it should be. Certainly playing as a solo, it was rough to say the least. The mechanics of the way you lay siege to enemies' fortresses and the way you break in is very, very well thought out. But overall, I felt that PvP was maybe not the heart of the game. That sat with PvE because it just felt more balanced.
Just like so.
Now the breaking point I'm talking about here is mostly in reference to if you're playing Vrising solo. There's about 25 bosses in, it becomes very hard to defeat them without help. It can be done, but you will likely have to repeat over and over and over the same battle. Now I'm not saying that bosses should be easy, because they shouldn't be, but with so many bosses ahead of you, it becomes a bit daunting that you have to go through this amount of pain for each one, and you start to get a bit of a sinking feeling. For me, I kind of reached a breaking point. Now that dynamic certainly changes if someone assists you, or if you have a small tribe working together. The mid to late bosses are definitely designed for tribes, not solo. Vrising is a perfect example of a good early access release. It is fully playable and it is an absorbing game with well put together mechanics. It doesn't need some tweaking, yes, but not that much. Is it good value? Hell yes, and should you flick your money towards it? Definitely. But let me summarise it eloquently. Vrising Early Access was enough to suck straight out of my veins 40 hours of gameplay with ease. I willingly showed the nape of my neck to it and let it suckle away, and in that transfer of my blood it imparted on me some magic, leaving me wanting more and eager to see what it will become. I think I may have become a Vrising familiar. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next chapter. Thanks for watching.
Until then, from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend.